Hello, I'm Jasmine Shapiro, and this is Shannon Johnson, and we are going to talk a little bit about Shannon's experience.
Oh, yes, we are.
So, Shannon, we're going to talk about why we, and particularly you, are so passionate about educating people when it comes to aging, our families, and how it affects everyone, emotionally and financially. So, Shannon, even the title of our podcast came from a conversation you were having with our group. Tell us a little bit about that.
So we really struggled with the title of our podcast. Every title we came up with when we, polled our friends and everything, they didn't get it. They were like, I don't get it. You're not telling me what you're telling me. I don't understand. So we sat around and we brainstormed and we had the Post-its on the wall and all the stuff. And finally, I looked at everybody and I said, I don't know, what are you supposed to say? Help, nobody told me. And the light bulb went off and everyone in the room was like, yes,
we
that's
all loved
it.
Yes, we all loved it.
Because they knew what I had gone through and how I came into the situation I'm in today.
And we hear it a lot, and you and I have both personally experienced it, but there is no manual on how do you get through aging. What are the steps that you need to take? How do you prepare yourself financially? How do you prepare yourself emotionally? And you had a particular incident that turned your life upside down.
I did. So on New Year's Eve, 2022, my phone rang, and it was my father, and he said, your mom's in the ER. My mom has a history of seizures, and they're normally under control, but that morning he woke up and she was having uncontrollable seizures and he couldn't stop them. And we're talking about seizure after seizure, 2 or 3 minutes apart. Her sister happened to be in town for the holidays. She's an EMT. They were both scared. So by the time he called me there in the ER, things started to progress. The next thing I knew, they had intubated her. My husband's calling the airline while I'm on the phone with my dad and making airline reservations for me to fly out the next day. Fast forward 2 weeks in ICU, and they're in Oklahoma. So we are 800 or so miles away, and in and out of doctors and tests, and they can't figure anything out. They can't get her into rehab. And I finally had to look at my parents and say, I'm packing you up and you're coming home with me until we figure this out because you can't go home alone.
And Shannon, I remember you called me and you said they gave you a lot of resistance. They loved their community. They lived there for how many years?
Over 40 years.
Yeah, they didn't want to just pick up and leave. Their friends were there, their church was there, their community
Absolutely.
was there. They were quite active. And now you're telling them they need to leave everything that they knew and loved and come home and live.
It was
you.
heartbreaking for them. It was very difficult. And even though I presented it as we have to get you home to be with me while we figure this out, I think in their hearts they knew they weren't going to be able to come back home alone.
Yeah.
So it was very difficult. And I think that's why it's so important that you have a plan with your parents, with your family, that you talk about these things before they happen so that you don't have to make decisions in crisis mode, because it's so scary and it's just so draining, and you are literally just running on adrenaline and making decisions as you move, and you don't know if they're the right decisions or not for anyone involved.
Right. So then you move them back to Chicago, to your home. Now they're living with you. And obviously your mother had just had this emergency room 2-week situation. She needs to be seen by a doctor. Her doctors are all in Oklahoma. How did you navigate that?
It was amazing to me that when I started making phone calls to all of the major hospitals here in the greater Chicago area, it was 6 to 9 months to get them in to see a doctor. I couldn't believe it. And I kept saying to people on the phones, wait, there's not a program to get people who are moving interstate into your system. They have major health issues, both of them. They have heart issues, they have high blood pressure. My mother just went through this major health crisis. They can't just not see doctors for 6 months. I couldn't believe it. There's no protocol.
So what did you do when you called up? Did you call your internist to see if they can come in, or how did you even begin?
Well, I had a client through real estate that I had worked with, and he is an internist, but I happened to know that he spends 2 days a week visiting nursing homes and working with elder care. So I gave him a call and I said, what can you do for me? And he said, I'll get them in on next Tuesday. And
which was wonderful.
It was amazing. But having that connection, thank God, I don't know what else I would have done. He was able to get us the referrals to get them into the neurologist, the cardiologist, all of the places that we needed to go, which was just amazing. Otherwise, we would have been spinning our wheels.
Right. So you were very fortunate that you had somebody in the back of your mind that you can reach out to. We will, in later episodes, have various guests on here to help our listeners figure this out, because you're living all over the country or the world, and there are programs and people that do specialize in helping situations like yours when you're bringing a loved one to live with you and they are now leaving all of their medical care. How do they reinvent it? So don't worry, we will take care of you in future episodes. But let me ask you this, how has it changed your family's life and the dynamic of your household?
Well, I'm not what they call the sandwich generation, because not only do I now have elder parents living with us, but I have a middle schooler and a high schooler as well. So we have 3 generations in the house, and it changes everything. You suddenly... Everyone's privacy is different. Everyone's just day-to-day dynamics and the way that we communicate is different. It's all changed. And I don't think we were prepared for the amount of change and the impact that it would have on our day-to-day lives. And think about this. Okay, ladies, let's be real. We all run our houses differently. And when you bring another woman into your house, I don't care if it's your own mom, we just don't do things the same way. So when someone else comes in and you don't clean the kitchen the same or you don't fold the towels the same, it creates friction. So there have been a lot of growing pains in our house in the last year and a half.
I can believe it. I mean, we all have experienced having our best friend come to stay with us, or a relative maybe you don't care so much for come and stay in your home, but it's usually for a short period of time.
Right. There's a reason it's for a short period of time.
Right. And now you have them living with you.
Yes.
So it's not just accommodating somebody for a couple of weeks. You had to physically move
and now
your
it's
whole
their
house
home,
around.
so you want them to be comfortable too.
Right.
You don't want them to feel that they are a bother to you either.
Right.
So it's a very delicate balance.
But
I don't have all the answers. That's why I consult professionals and experts.
And do you think it is in one way good for your children because they're learning how to handle somebody that might not be 100% healthy, that might need some assistance?
I do see incredible growth in my children, as far as my son is so gentle with them and so giving, and we don't always see 15-year-old boys be delicate and soft, and it is very endearing to see him care for his grandmother. So that is a very sweet side of it that we get to see, and it does my mommy heart good to see that.
That's all wonderful, and I think it's important because I think most people, whether you're a child or an adult, if you haven't experienced dealing with somebody with a disability or an illness, you don't always know what to do. So your kids are getting a head start. So in one way, it's a blessing.
Yes, and we have to count every single one of those
Yes.
as we deal with the struggles too.
Yeah. So now your dad is a veteran.
He is. And since he's been here, we have been able to actually navigate the veteran system. He's now 100% disabled through the veteran system, which has been a huge just advantage. We here in Chicago have an incredible system. Sometimes you hear not the best stories about the VA, but here on the North Shore, out in North Chicago, at Lovell, and I'm probably not saying that right. They actually have one of the prototypes for what they would like to see nationwide, and they service active duty military as well as VAs in the same facility. So it's a really nice balance. We've had incredible experiences there. My dad is starting to suffer from some dementia and things like that, and they have just been incredible. So it is a wonderful facility. And if you do have someone who has served in the military, they do deserve those services that our government provides.
Absolutely.
And if you haven't checked into that, there are ways to get that information. And we will have veteran advocates at some point that will speak and really talk about how to dig into those services and take advantage of those benefits for those who have served and fought for our country.
Yeah, we definitely will have somebody from the Veterans Association come on, because I know that I've seen you personally go through a lot of paperwork.
Yes, but they have advocates that will help you actually figure out, which forms, how to fill them out, who to send them to. It's just like doing your taxes and Medicare and all those things. There's so much to it. It's just another one of those things that there's a lot of red tape, but once you get in the system, it is really amazing.
So what is the best advice to anyone who is watching their parents age? And it's just the beginning. What advice would you give them going through this, and now you're, a year and a half into it?
I think the most important thing is talk about it now, up front. Don't wait until it's too late. Start having these conversations when they're young and active, and talk about all the what ifs and the scenarios that you don't want to think about, because they might happen, and they might happen sooner than you think because there's a tragic accident or something. So just have those conversations. Make sure you know what they want. Make sure you understand their finances. Make sure you know where all the paperwork is. Just have all of those conversations while they still are cognizant, while they can still understand all the things, because you'd be really surprised how quickly the little things about how things work, as how their banking system works and all those things, start to dwindle when you've seen them navigate life so well your whole life, and all of a sudden you cock your head and go, what's happening? So while they're active, while they're mentally sharp, have all of those tough conversations, and just know what they want and know what you're comfortable with, as well as your other siblings. There's always one that's going to lead the charge. Figure out who it is and have those conversations.
Thank you, Shannon. That is great advice. And through your experience, we have been prompted to meet more people that can help advise you on all these different steps. We have an attorney on our team that's going to talk about a lot of important issues that you need to kind of get in place while they are of sound mind.
Absolutely.
And we have guests that will talk about different placement for care as you get older, and also when you're young. What do we have to do at age 30 to start preparing ourselves for the future? So lots of information, lots of important guests. So stay tuned.
We're super excited.